Recently, I had a whole bottle of Coke. But then I thought, where did this drink come from? Now it wasn't because of the taste, but because of how popular the company is. My curiosity led me looking for answers, and what I found was disturbing to say the least. Turns out, behind the iconic logo and catchy ads, the real story behind the bottle is that of exploitation, environmental damage, and shady business deals. The truth is, Coca-Cola's squeaky clean image is only maintained through its multi-billion-dollar marketing machine. They've mastered the art of distraction, hiding the ugly truth behind a facade of feel-good vibes and sentimental commercials. It's all about emotions, not just sugar water. So buckle up, cause I'm about to take you on a journey spanning 3 different centuries, tracing how a substance first invented as a pharmaceutical drug became the Coke we all know and drink today. The first Coca-Cola formula was developed by this man, Dr. John State Pemberton, a pharmacist who had to ditch his lab coat for a military uniform during the American Civil War. 3 years into battle, Pemberton got caught in a direct line of fire and was severely injured by a saber. The doctors didn't think he would make it, so they dosed him up with morphine to ease the pain for his last few hours. However, he miraculously survived and made a full recovery. After the war had ended, he moved to Atlanta where he became a physician. But having survived a near-death experience, Pemberton, like many veterans, found himself battling with a morphine addiction. So he began searching for a cure. You see, back in the 19th century, there was so many serious allegations against doctors and their practices. So much so that people began turning to patent medicines as an alternative. But what they didn't know was that these alternatives will also bring their own set of problems, like deceitful and shady entrepreneurs taking advantage of the vulnerable. With federal regulation of foods and drugs years away, anybody can concoct some vile potion and claim all sorts of miraculous cures and sell it. As a result, most of these so-called patent medicines contained huge amounts of alcohol and even stronger substances that made them addictive. One of those potions was Vin Mariani, a popular tonic at the time which itself contained red wine which is alcoholic and ground up coca leaves which contains about 0.35 grams of cocaine. It was endorsed by many notable figures of the time. And because of its stimulating effects from the coca leaf infusion, it was claimed to have several health benefits. So when Pemberton stumbled upon Vin Mariani, it made his morphine addiction go away. But understand that this isn't entirely because Vin Mariani was medicinal, but because of the cocaine that was inside. However, like all addictive substances, he kept coming back for more. Then he thought, why don't I concoct my own potion? So he got to work also using coca leaves, red wine and colonels to create what he called French wine coca. Although his intention was to help himself and other veterans suffering from similar addiction, he unknowingly laid the foundation for what will in a few decades become one of the most recognized brands in the world. When the product first hit the market, it became an instant hit. People claim it was capable of curing virtually every ailment you could have. It was sold at $1 per bottle at pharmaceutical stores, and sources claimed it was quite bitter and really strong. However, John's timing couldn't have been worse. The city of Atlanta introduced prohibition in 1886, which among other things forbade the selling of wine. So Pemberton decided to make a non-alcoholic version of his drink. He dropped the reference to wine in the name and removed the alcohol. But then he realized that the colonels made it extremely bitter, so he added a bunch of other ingredients and loads of sugar. However, he left the cocaine inside, because at the time it was not an illegal substance. With these little changes, the new formula was ready. And for a new name, his bookkeeper and business partner Frank Robinson suggested the name Coca-Cola, but for marketing's sake, spelled with 2 C's, as it will look more attractive to the eyes. Frank even did the company's iconic logo in his own handwriting. So there you have it, the first Coca-Cola formula actually contained cocaine, because cocaine wasn't declared illegal until 1914. While the Coca-Cola company denied the fact that they ever had the substance in their product, historical evidence shows the contrary. It actually took till 1929 before scientists were able to perfect the removal of all psychoactive elements from the leaf. But back then, the substance was not an issue. So, to increase profits, Coca-Cola began selling their syrup at pharmaceutical store counters, mixed with carbonated water at a retail price of 5 cents compared to the $1 per bottle. However, total Coca-Cola sales for the first year of operation was a complete disaster. They only made $50 for a total cost of $70. John saw this as a failure. Meanwhile, optimistic Frank saw it differently and said this was to be expected since the business was new. Unfortunately though, John will never get to see Coca-Cola become a huge success. His sales dwindled just as sales were starting to take off. He was diagnosed with stomach cancer. As a result, he relapsed to ease the pain. But he worried that money for his family and addiction would run dry, so he made the difficult decision of selling shares of the business. However, he kept a third of the shares for his son, as he believed that one day his product will become a hit. The tragedy, he will never get to witness that. In 1887, Atlanta pharmacist and businessman Asa Candler purchased the rights to the Coca-Cola name and secret formula for $2,300. But multiple sources have long claimed that the purchase was made in a controversial and disputed manner. The sale was likely coerced, as Pemberton was not in a stable condition to make such a decision. Pemberton later claimed that he was deceived and tried to regain control, but Candler's legal team fought him off. Seeing Coca-Cola's potential, Candler was determined to acquire the formula. Allegations suggested that after acquiring it, he burned all documents and papers related to the transaction, including the original formula and any records of Pemberton's ownership, likely to conceal the controversial circumstances of the acquisition. Meanwhile, Candler, a marketing expert, wasted no time in building the company and expanding sales. One of his marketing schemes was mass advertisement. In 1902 alone, he spent over $100,000 on advertisements. In fact, to this day, the company spends over 10% of their revenues on ads. He will have people do the logo on buildings, billboards, and literally anything he could get his hands on. His goal was to instill the Coca-Cola brand logo into people's heads, a strategy which is still used by the company today. Since very few people knew what Coca-Cola was at the time, Candler launched a new campaign where he would write to soda fountain operators asking them for the list of their top 50 customers. He then sent these customers coupons believing that if people tried Coca-Cola once, they will become lifelong customers due to its addictive nature because of, what's inside. His marketing strategy was highly successful and sales went through the roof. Between 1890 and 1900, Coca-Cola syrup sales increased by over 4,000%. Candler expanded the distribution to every US state and then to Canada. However, his attempt to create a demand in Europe failed terribly. For the Germans, anything other than beer or wine was considered for children, while the French viewed buying an inferior American drink insulting. One day, two lawyers, Joseph Whitehead and Benjamin Thomas, visited Asa Candler's office. By then, Coca-Cola was already popular as a fountain drink. However, the two men proposed bottling the drink. They said so folks could take it home. But Candler thought it was a dumb idea. He certainly thought that bottling the product wouldn't work. Now, before you judge Candler here for being short-sighted, note that at the time, bottling was not a reputable business. It was often a back alley thing that's done mostly when a product had gone bad. Sometimes bottling operations are even carried out at barns covered with straws and animal dungs nearby. Plus, the whole bottling thing was quite expensive, so Candler didn't want anything to do with it. With that, he told the two men to go and bottle up all the Coke they want, and because he didn't think the idea would work, he put almost no thought into the issue and signed a never-ending contract for a fee of just $1. This tragic mistake will in the following decades cost the company millions of dollars and countless lawsuits just to buy back some of the bottling rights that was sold for just $1. However, back then, this was not a problem for Candler, because if they somehow succeeded, he will sell more syrup, and if they fail, he will have nothing to lose. Meanwhile, Joseph and Benjamin secured financing and established bottling operations across the United States. And to Candler's surprise, customers quickly became hooked on bottled-up Coca-Colas, leading to sales that soon surpassed fountain sales. As a result, the bottlers became wealthy almost overnight. In fact, Coca-Cola became so popular that others tried to cash in on their success by creating their own knockoff products. At the time, Coca-Cola itself was not consistent when it came to their bottle designs. This allowed imitators to exploit the situation. With so many different bottle shapes, it became difficult for people to distinguish between the real Coke and the fake versions. This also meant that Candler along with the bottlers were losing good business. So the Coca-Cola company decided to create something unique that was difficult to copy, a contour bottle. This way it will be difficult for anyone to copy their products. The specifications were it had to be recognized whether it's in the dark or broken on the ground. This way customers will know they are getting the real deal. Candler resigned from the company the year after Coca-Cola introduced its contour bottle. He handed over control to his children, who sold the company 3 years later for $25 million to a group of investors. The new management successfully addressed Candler's unfinished goal of establishing a demand for Coca-Cola in Europe. They marketed Coca-Cola as a fun, refreshing drink across the continent, associating the brand with celebrities and major events like the Olympic Games. During this time, Coca-Cola execs observed that sales were high during the summer but low in winter, as people did not associate Coca-Cola with cold weather. To address this issue, they decided to link Coca-Cola with Christmas. So what they did was they found a Saint Santa Claus, and matched him with the story of Saint Nick, and again matched him with Kris Kringle, a Danish thief whose job during the day was a chimney sweep. They matched them together and stuck them in the Coca-Cola colors red and white. That's why periodically you'll see Santa Claus on Coca-Cola cans. And then they transform Christmas, where all of a sudden this mythical being is bringing you presents. Obviously, this marketing genius worked. As a result, Coca-Cola continued to grow steadily through the 1920s and the 1930s. However, the most significant expansion for the company surprisingly came as a result of one of the greatest tragedies of the 20th century. In 1941, America entered the Second World War. At first, this threatened everything. Coca-Cola faced a major threat due to sugar rationing. To address this, the company sent lobbyists to Washington, arguing that their product was essential for the war effort and should be exempt from the rationing. Coca-Cola promised that every soldier will be able to get a bottle of Coke for just 5 cents, no matter what it will cost the company and no matter where they are. This meant they will be selling at a loss, yet it was a brilliant business move, because now their product will have a chance to travel even further overseas, thus providing a greater potential for expansion. So as thousands of American soldiers were sent overseas to fight, Coca-Cola began launching a series of patriotic ads that emphasized their roles in boosting soldiers' morale. Notably, when General Eisenhower asked soldiers how he could boost their morale, they requested cigarettes, candies, and Coke. As a result, he wrote a letter to Coca-Cola requesting mobile bottling plants and 6 million filled bottles of Coke per month. To build those plans, a special group of Coca-Cola employees known as technical observers were deployed to handle the logistics of installation. They wore army fatigues with unique identification patches and received army officers' pay. What's more, they were even considered as crucial as those repairing planes and tanks. Their mission was simple: to ensure Coca-Cola reached every American soldier regardless of their location. The technical observers were welcomed warmly by soldiers and given the nickname Coca-Cola Colonels. 2 of them even returned home in flag-draped caskets. When Coca-Cola became available to the soldiers, it became a comforting reminder of home and boosted their morale. For many locals, it was their first taste of the drink, which they obviously enjoyed. As a result of this, once the war was over, Coca-Cola found itself positioned for global expansion. From the mid-1940s to 1960, the number of countries with bottling operations nearly doubled. As of 2024, the only 2 countries that do not sell Coca-Cola products are North Korea and Cuba. This is primarily due to political and trade restrictions. So as the smoke of the war was clearing, Coca-Cola was emerging as a global symbol of friendship and refreshment. Coca-Cola's support for American soldiers during the war was a notable act of patriotism, providing refreshment and a taste of home for those fighting for freedom. However, there was one issue. You see, while Coca-Cola positioned itself as a symbol of American solidarity, it was simultaneously doing the exact same thing to the Nazi German soldiers. The company was effectively playing both sides, and their support for the Nazis went beyond just supplying drinks. They also used their resources to make significant donations to the Nazi war effort. The company's logo was often displayed alongside swastikas, and their drinks were often served at Nazi rallies. Eventually though, the German government threatened to seize all enemy-owned businesses. Thus, the import of Coca-Cola syrup into Germany became increasingly difficult and eventually impossible. To outmaneuver this, Max Kade, the head of Coca-Cola in Germany at the time, created a new product for the German market only using locally available ingredients. He assembled a recipe with remnants from other food industries such as fruit shavings, apple fibers, and beet sugar. There are even reports that forced labor was used in the production of this new drink. Kade and his team named the new concoction Fanta, derived from the German word for fantasy, and the name stuck. After the war, Coca-Cola regained control of the plant, formula, trademarks, and profits from Fanta. And of course, Kate was promoted. In 1943 alone, 3 million cases of Fanta were sold in Germany. So when the smokes of the Second World War finally cleared, over 5 billion bottles of Coke had been distributed to those in uniforms. There were so many bottling plants spread across that could be developed into permanent bottling plants, and in many cases, locals will take over the bottling plants. And other times it was the soldiers that liked the place where they were posted and decided to live there and take over the bottling operation. To produce 1 liter of Coke takes about 3 liters of water. Since Coke is basically sugar water, it's no secret that its heavy operation is 100% reliant on water. So in order to satisfy this need, the company is increasingly taking over aquifers in communities around the world. However, these have led to problems in many communities. A good example is Varanasi, India, where Coca-Cola's bottling plant has caused severe water shortages and environmental damage. Local villagers have reported that the company's excessive use of water resources has negatively impacted their crops and led to the drying up of wells. And these issues are often accompanied by a string of other environmental and health problems. Similar concerns have arisen in South Africa and Mexico. In El Salvador, for example, the company has faced accusations of depleting water resources over a 25-year period. Additionally, in Mexico, former President Vicente Fox, a former president of Coca-Cola Mexico himself, has granted the company concessions to exploit community water resources. However, in many of these cases, actions have been taken by both Coca-Cola and the authorities to address these issues. And of course, several lawsuits against the company have been successful, resulting in the termination of licenses or eviction notices. In Turkey, the company was sued on behalf of transport workers and their families for its alleged role in the intimidation and torture of trade union members and their families by a special branch of police. Similarly, in Guatemala, workers have been battling Coca-Cola since the 1970s. Between 1976 and 1985, 3 general secretaries of the main union were assassinated along with some members of their families. Their friends and legal advisors have also faced threats, kidnappings, torture, and forced exile. In early 2004, the company launched its bottled water brand Dasani in the UK. Initially, the product was marketed as a premium bottled water, but it faced immediate backlash when it was revealed that Dasani was actually reprocessed tap water. The water underwent a purification process that included reverse osmosis, followed by the addition of minerals to enhance its taste. The controversy escalated when it was reported that Dasani contained a high level of bromide, a chemical byproduct of the purification process, which is potentially harmful in large quantities. This revelation led to widespread criticisms and regulatory scrutiny. Consumers felt misled about the nature of the product, and there were accusations that Coca-Cola was capitalizing on the environmental concerns by charging a premium for water that was not significantly different from tap water. In response to the backlash, Coca-Cola withdrew Dasani from the UK markets in March of 2004, just a few months after its launch. However, they rebranded Dasani in other markets and improved its messaging to better align with consumer expectations. If you look for it, you'll find so many other controversies against the company. But one thing is for sure, Coca-Cola will always bounce back from any setback. They'll quickly address the problem, make necessary changes, and of course, lots and lots of catchy ads that will make you quickly forget. Their strong global presence and deep connection with consumers has given them the resilience to overcome challenges and come out stronger. In many ways, Coca-Cola is not just your average soda company. It's got a whole deeper side to it, not just because they own so many other brands and products, but that despite all the terrible things about them that you might have heard, somehow they've managed to uphold this squeaky clean image. All thanks to the mega expansive marketing campaign and of course some addictive ingredients.